So why did your center choose PaceMate, and what value has it brought to your clinic?
We had a lot of reasons for choosing. Some of the primary reasons were patient safety aspects with the alert system, increased revenue, decrease of resources needed, also stabilized our staffing. We really appreciate the integration with Epic system and the bidirectional communication between Epic and PaceMate to continually update advisories and recalls, medications with the vendor sites and the patient charts. There are a lot of reasons, but we have about 3,100 patients, and automatic creation of a patient is also a key factor. That was a lot of patients to have to maybe possibly have to create a new chart for, and it does it for us.
From a nursing perspective, though, I mean, how does the system help you overall if you're...
It definitely decreases our workload. We came from a system where we created the report, printing it, and then uploading, creating a flow sheet with hand-entered data. So this does all of that automatically for us. It also automates our billing. It adds the coding as well, so we have less rejection on our payment. It allows our nurses to all work from one centralized platform, and instead of being on different sites all day. It also allows them to be mobile. We have nurses that can now work from home on laptops. It also has made us a little more mobile to do a little more with our satellite clinics that we have started up. So it is also, from a nursing perspective, greatly increased our patient safety, which is a key factor to us, especially with our AFib patients, finding those new onset AFib patients, and again, tracking them as they continue through their journey. And if their anticoagulants change, we can adjust to that as well. Having the ability to hyperlink alerts on a specific report going to a doctor to allow that physician to easily access that event instead of a pile of paperwork handed to him. So that was a huge asset as well.
How efficient was the implementation?
It was very efficient. Our IT team was actually a little afraid of the implementation. They had never taken on a project that big, but we had an 8-week timeline. We actually beat that timeline. Our IT department went through it very seamlessly, I guess is the best word. There were very few bumps in the roads. If there was one, it was very quickly resolved. They were handed a recipe, if you want to put it that way, of how to do step by step. They followed the book, and I joined in later on in the implementation, joined in with them and the playground situation to help both learn how to navigate on my end a little bit, but it also helped them along the way to engage in potential issues that may arise before we went go live. And then on the implementation day, go live went unbelievably seamless, considering we actually had a power outage for a couple hours during that day. But we had PaceMate IT there and one of our IT members there, and anything that happened within a couple minutes, they had it resolved in the background. At the end of it, our IT team was very impressed with how easy it actually was to get everything up and running. And we beat, like I mentioned, we beat the timeline. We actually chose to keep that same date. So PaceMate and Genesis IT was actually waiting on the clinic versus us waiting on them.
What about integration with either CVIS or with Epic?
Epic, it's beautiful. As we send off our reports to the physicians, once they e-sign that report, it does transfer over into Epic. Very rarely do we have any issues. Typically, if we do, it's more along the lines of information being programmed into the device inaccurately, whether it be a patient name with a misspelling or a birth date. Once that's corrected, it never happens again. And typically, as soon as it's signed, within minutes, it's in the patient's chart.
Why did you pick PaceMate over Merge?
Over Merge? Well, automatic patient creation was one. The continual bidirectional information, specifically with the medications, was huge. At the end of the day, when we considered everyone involved in the process, we not only looked at it from our perspective, but we actually looked at it from the provider perspective. My team in the clinic is very tech savvy. They could have handled any software I threw at them and would have done it happily compared to where we were coming from. But at the end of the day, that report's going into another hand, and we had to ensure that the other side of that problem and equation was equally as happy with the product. So when we saw the viewable aspect of PaceMate, the ease of navigation, the simplicity for the doctors to get in there and see the information they needed to see, that was sort of the deal breaker for us. That was the product that was going to be the most user-friendly for them. And I do have doctors on both sides of the spectrum, ones that do everything from their cell phone and ones that don't want to click another button on their computer at work. And my physicians and providers have been very satisfied. We've had little to no complaints at all. On a rare occasion, in the beginning, I would get called up to an office to help educate them on something, but it was usually a 2-minute process and they were good to go.
How long did it take to do data entry before and after this software was installed?
Our old system was very archaic. We printed the report, scanned it into the chart. We had CMAs that helped us with that. So we're in essence at their mercy waiting for that report to get scanned in the chart. Then they would give it to us because they would open an encounter for us. And we had a flow sheet in Epic. They would hand enter the static data, and then the nurses would then take the report from that point, enter the comments. We would add the billing, add the coding, send it off to the physician. Very labor intensive, very time consuming. Also used a ton of paper and a ton of ink. And now my CMA's role have definitely changed. They're more on office side of things now. They help with the follow-up phone calls, disconnected monitors, rooming patients. They've had a lot of their workload taken off of them. And the reports are there in the morning, and by the end of the day, our site is cleared, which previous to that, it wasn't uncommon for us to be 1 week to 6 weeks behind on our reports, just because of the extra time it took to manually enter all of that information. So it's much more efficient. Our resources and utilization of paper and ink is definitely down. The speed of the report getting processed is increased. Our staffing is very stabilized. At this point in the game, if it wasn't for PaceMate, I would probably actually be in the market for another nurse based on our numbers. But with PaceMate, we are freed up enough now that we don't feel that we needed to add another at this point. And we actually have filled one of our medical assistant positions that we didn't really need at this point. We didn't need the amount that we had, but our manager chose to go ahead and rehire to make that a float person now to help out with other departments. So it has definitely changed our rules and timelines.
In terms of time savings, I mean, compared to how you used to do things and now?
Huge. Like I said, it wasn't uncommon for us to be 1 week to 6 weeks behind. And it wasn't uncommon for us to go home at night and still have a pile of remotes laying there on our desk. And very infrequently now do I leave and there's anything left on our site. If it is, it's because it's been a very, very bad clinic day and we just haven't had as much time as normal online. But typically about probably 95+% of the time, our site is cleared and we go home with a happy empty plate.
You touched upon this earlier, but what was it like to get fully integrated with the Epic system?
Freeing. It was very freeing on our end. It's a lot of responsibility to be in charge of the billing aspects and uploads and getting the information into the proper chart. And with it being integrated to Epic, that is all done automatically now, and everything's matched up in the background with the patient name, date of birth, EMR numbers. We know it's going in the right chart. We know where it's going, how it's going there. We're able to customize where we wanted it in our chart. So it's really taken a lot of the pressure off of the actual office side of things from the report, off of the nurses and the CMA, so that we can actually focus on our nursing and what we're supposed to be there for.
In terms of prior to implementation, I mean, how many times did you have to go back and forth to the chart and to check things versus today?
Typically on any remote, I was in the chart looking for something. Now I don't do that near as much. Typically, if I am going back into the chart, it's because PaceMate has updated the medication and I've had a patient that's been on an anticoagulant, and now it flagged it that they're no longer on it, and that's my cue to go back out and look at that chart and find out why, so I can write some notes in there and keep track of what's going on with that patient. So typically if I'm in the chart, it's because PaceMate has actually alerted me to something changing that I do need to go look at.
How does the auto triage work using the system?
Auto triage has a couple different layers to it. So when we contracted, they actually sent us a list of their alert system and what their standards were, and then we were able to go in and customize those as a clinic setting. And as the nurses, we sat down and sort of came up with a combined effort from all the different vendor sites and what our normal alert system was, and created a uniform alert system for all the vendor sites that worked with what our facility needs were. We then took that list to our doctors who approved it and sent it back to PaceMate. That became our new clinic normal for PaceMate. Then on top of that, as I have a patient in the clinic, if I need to adjust that alert system for a specific patient, I can go in the background and customize it even further for that patient. On top of that, the alert system will do the red, yellow, green flags, and there again, that's sort of wherever your clinic's threshold is for different things. And so that hones our eyes in a little quicker in the mornings. We know which ones to go to first, which ones can wait till the end of the day when we have some free time. So the auto triage is a multi-level system that works beautiful.
And can you tell me a little bit about your clinic, patient makeup, and what you needed for operability?
So we service Zanesville, Ohio area, and we have 7 counties that we serve in our facility. We have approximately 3,100 device patients. And they are the pacemakers, defibrillators, loop recorders, and biventricular devices. Probably the biggest factor was the Epic integration. Obviously, whatever system we chose, we wanted it to work with the current system. There are other vendors out there that offer that, but when we did our research, it did integrate so well with Epic and so seamlessly from the other people we had discussed it with and talked to that it was just sort of a no-brainer for us, because it doesn't do a lot of good to have another system if you just have to work in another system and they don't talk to each other. No provider out there wants to have 10,000 different places to go, and so having something that would integrate and have that direction of information back and forth was probably the biggest benefit. Like you said, we don't have to go back and forth to the charts. We don't have to continually look for changes.
How did the software allow you to focus more on the patient?
It definitely has allowed us to focus more on the patient. Because we're freed up from all those clerical sides of the report system, we do have more time to be nurses and correlate different events, correlate comorbidities with the patient, spend that extra minute sort of looking at that report in a whole instead of just a bunch of numbers.
Has it made your job more manageable?
Definitely more manageable. Like I said, if it wasn't for them, we would be looking for another nurse right now, and we're not. We're very comfortable where we are. It's actually given us the freedom to allow nurses to work from home now. We never had that capability before. Not having a system that integrates with Epic. Now if I have a nurse that has a sick child and needs to be home, they can still be productive, and that's a big benefit to us. Staffing's always a big thing at facilities. They don't ever like to hire more staff, so if you can make the most of what you got, PaceMate definitely allowed us to do that, and we are very thankful for that.
If from a nursing perspective, how was the system in terms of onboarding?
Very user-friendly. There is a lot of information there, but they're actually very easy to navigate. It's simplistic to look at. You don't have to search around 10 different screens to find what you're looking for. There's a lot of filters that you can look for very specific things. I can work on billable remotes, I can work on non-billables, I can work on red flags, I can work on a specific vendor site. You can kind of divide and conquer if your clinic likes to specialize. This person likes to do this company, that person likes to do that company. So it allows a lot of flexibility that way.
And how easy was this to integrate within your program?
I tell everybody, any process change is huge. We had gone from printing and scanning to completely electronic medical record system that integrated with Epic. So it was a huge change. The first 3 weeks, I'm not gonna lie, the first 3 weeks were a little stressful. It was something new. It wasn't that PaceMate was hard to use, it was just new to use, and so we had to learn it. The first 3 weeks, my staff was very quiet. You didn't hear anybody chitter chatter. I actually went out after the first day and thought, oh my goodness, what have we done? And bought $30 worth of candy and put in a big bowl and brought in the next day. And by the end of the week, the candy was gone, but my nurses were more relaxed, starting to find their new normal. And by week 6, I would say that was when the magic really started to happen, and we fell into our new normal. And there was chitter chatter back in the clinic again, and we were joking around, and you would have never known we had another life before PaceMate at that point. It continues to change, and we get excited when we see the new changes and the new little features they add, and we send them wish lists of new items we would love to see. So it was, I won't say it was completely not stressful. It was stressful. It was a change. But it was definitely a change for the better. We don't regret our decision. We would do it again in a heartbeat. We're very, very pleased with the system.
Are there any workflow efficiencies that have helped you deliver better care or save time?
Better care, definitely. One of my personal favorite features is the advisories and recalls that populate. If I have a device that may potentially be affected by a recall and advisory, it does flag on that chart. I can then check the serial number. It takes me directly to that recall or advisory site, so if I'm not familiar with it, I can read up on it. If that advisory recall is done and over with, and it's off the chart and another one rolls around, it pops back up again that next transmission. So it's continually keeping me in the loop of that, and there's actually a lot of advisories and different things that come up that we don't always get told about if the rep doesn't happen to stop by and tell us. So that's been a big one. The increased frequency of medication changes being reflected on the chart is a huge patient safety aspect for us. Flagging alert system that gets those alerts and those high priority remotes over to the docs. Our physicians know if they see a red flag, that's something they need to deal with today and not tomorrow. So that's been beneficial to our patients. Because we're not as embedded in the process, it has freed up time to now we can focus on other things too, like our disconnected monitors and keeping those patients active, following up with different issues that have arisen. It's constantly changing, but the changes, every time they make a change, it just seems like it's something that helps. I mean, one of the simplest things they've done is on an implant date, if it's a new implant, it highlights that square red. And to most people in the outside world, that's not a big deal. When you're a device nurse, that tells me to take that extra second to look at those leads and those measurements, because similar to alarm fatigue on a floor, when you look at these remotes all day, every day, you tend to glance over things at times. And when I see something like that stand out, that's my signal to take that extra second. And those little things are what helps us and helps our patients and helps us care for them the way we want to.
Has any of this impacted overall outcomes, or did you catch things that maybe you would have missed otherwise?
I think yes, especially with the AFib alerts. If a patient has been taken off of anticoagulation and we've not known that, and then they again have AFib, it triggers us quicker to get that over to the physicians to be addressed if it needs to be addressed. Because we have more time to look at the remotes a little longer. So when you're 6 weeks behind a remote, you tend to process them a little faster just to get them done, get them caught up. When you're going day to day and keeping caught up on your daily work, you have that ease of looking at that remote and actually doing it the way it was meant to be done, and not cutting corners here and there because, well, maybe tomorrow I might have an extra minute, because I have the extra minute today now and I can do it the right way the first time.
You had mentioned a little bit earlier, but has there been any impact on charge capture reimbursements with the software?
I do have in pretty good confidence that we are now hitting over 90% capture on our billing, which is pretty remarkable. I'm happy about that. I'm sure my facility is even happier. But because it is doing the automated billing and putting those codes and everything, it takes away the rejected claims. Because I have more time to work on my disconnected monitors, we are capturing those remotes coming in that would have been missed before because the monitors were down, so you have that aspect to look at as well. So yeah, we are high up there on our billing capture.
What did your average day look like prior to using PaceMate, and how has the software changed that?
So our day would have been coming in, the nurses going into each vendor site and actually printing off the reports. We would add events to each one to give examples of each type of event. We then paperclip those, gave them to our CMAs, who then scan that report in, put it in the chart, opened up an encounter, started the static flow sheet. Then we went in, we created our note, added the billing, added the coding, and then forwarded it on to the physician. And that in itself was a lengthy process. And in the middle of all that, we also had to check patients in clinics. So now I come in and my reports are on the screen, ready to go. We typically will divide and conquer. I usually keep 2 nurses in the clinic side of things each day and 2 strictly in remotes. And we actually just flip half day so that we don't get fatigued doing those remotes online all day. We will divide and conquer sites. I have a couple nurses that specialize in 2 vendors and 2 other nurses that specialize in the other 2. So we will sort out and filter out, work on our specific sites. And when someone's done early, they will jump over and help whoever's left on their site. But everything's ready to go when we get there in the mornings. And it's just a matter of typically clearing our alerts first. And we go from high to low on those, the red to the green. And then we start working on the scheduled remotes.
In terms of the platform, you're looking at Medtronic devices, St. Jude, Abbott, et cetera. So does this platform help you integrate all those implantables into one location?
It does. We work with the 4 primary vendors, Medtronic, Boston, Biotronic, St. Jude, and they all come over, which was one of the big selling factors. Not all products do, and I didn't see a point in having a product if it didn't cover all of our needs. So it does bring all of those sites over to us.